by the way, Gerardo, who spoke on our behalf.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how vehemently I detest that white supremacy card. It is so offensive.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're understanding how absolutely baseless it is.
Mm-hmm. Well,
there are people in Cudahy who don't support the sanctuary city policy. You do know that, right?
yeah, I know that. Yeah.
Nellie
Obviously,
Blacker
that's
was bold enough to say so,
Yeah.
which I really respect her. And she's an immigrant too, and I absolutely respect her for what she's done. She hugs me openly. I love her. She's great.
It all goes back to assumption. I mean, there's people that assume that most illegal immigrants are criminals. There's some people that assume that you're a white supremacist.
Okay.
And I see past that. I'm not biased. That's why I'm able to watch CNN and Fox News without, I'm not biased at all whatsoever.
I do have to correct it. People who have entered this country illegally are criminals. It's a crime. If you do that in Mexico, it's 10 years in jail. Or worse, if you cross the southern border or try to, they have a wall and you get shot. You are aware of that,
Yeah,
right?
I'm aware of that. But like I said, there's a lot of people who are...
We're pretty damn lenient in this country.
Yeah.
Too lenient. China, they don't let people leave.
I'm trying to see that. I'm trying to find an answer right now as far as we're not going to be able to deport 11 million people right now.
Actually, we don't have to deport. Individuals will leave on their own, or they'll finally just become citizens.
Yeah,
there is a
that's
process already. That's why I have a new and direct response. We need a pathway. We already have one. We need to follow it. Just as if I wanted to be in Singapore or France, there is a policy you have to follow.
It's just the way people approach things, okay? If especially the way Trump did it. Honestly, it was a marketing scheme what he did. The truth is, the way he said it. It was an insult to Mexicans. It was an insult.
What was the insult?
That the majority are rapists.
Let's speak to that right now. I've got to cut through this because this is wrong. Do you mind? I don't mean to be. I've got to find it because I wanted to write a special post on this because there are many Mexican Americans who support Trump.
Right. Yeah, I know.
Including Raul Rodriguez, who's in our team.
They didn't take it personal. I didn't take it personal. But see, the way he approached things is that how it got everything into a stir and it's just it's generalizing. At the end of the day, that's what it is. You wouldn't want me to come to your house and say, "Hey, Arthur, the majority of people in your home are rapists," and when it's a low percentage of people.
Okay.
And
I can't find it right now. What's important is when Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best. They're bringing crime.
Yeah.
They're rapists, they're murderers, and some of them are good people.
Yeah.
The media, 90 times out of 100, cuts that out. See, he's even calling them. So here's the second thing to deduce. Mexican has a lot of great people, and they stay in their country.
And they're wrong. It's actually the other way around. The majority don't break laws. The majority don't. He should have said, some of those are criminals. The majority are good people. That's where he's wrong.
Well,
statistically, I'm telling you right now. For instance, Caucasians, they produce 35% of them, 35% more rapists and pedophiles than illegal immigrants or any other race. And like I said, I laugh at the situation because I feel like not just illegal immigrants, but Mexicans, Guatemalans, Salvadorians, Asians, other people who hate Trump, they made him more famous than what he should have been. He said those things for a reason because he knew it was going to make people...
Well, here's the thing.
Yeah.
I've talked to people who lived in Mexico and they agree. A lot of them are committing crimes. Now, he didn't say the majority of them, but they are bringing crime. The cartels that are eating up your communities are part of this creepy phalanx. And thank God for Jeff Sessions. He just targeted MS-13 today. Where was Bush?
Yeah.
Where, I've gone after both sides.
You cannot tell me that gangs, like I told you, gangs, rapists, they exist in every demographic. There's white gangs, Asian gangs,
I agree.
Mexican gangs.
But the problem is that illegals being in the country because our laws aren't being enforced. This is a problem that doesn't have to exist.
Let me tell you something about MS-13. MS-13 started here.
I would believe. I won't challenge that.
I'm gonna tell you the history. It was started here in the United States. It didn't start in El Salvador. The reason why they got so powerful is because the small group that started here got deported to El Salvador, and over there they rounded up and got bigger and bigger and came back here. That wasn't the answer. Deportation wasn't the answer. I mean, that's a whole different story. But like I said, MS-13 wasn't started. It wasn't started in another country. It actually was started here in the United States.
I will definitely. You've given me two things to look up, so I will do that. That Salvador's, we've been, fighting global communism is a serious issue. Reagan, I think, did the right things. I don't give him a pass actually on Iran-Contra. I don't believe he was asleep at the wheel. But I wouldn't have had him removed from office over it. Wow, I'm breaking some rules here, but you've got to, you had Ollie North selling arms to Iran to help the Contras. Reagan was working with Saddam Hussein after Iran, and now we're going after everybody. We were working with Afghanistan at one time.
What do you think about
foreign policy is tricky?
North Korea thing? What's your answer?
I'm glad to see a show of power. I think it's China. It's time for China to stop propping them up, because that's the only reason they survive. China doesn't. Want to talk about immigration? They throw North Koreans back too. North Koreans they are trying to get out of that country. So they got the reverse problem. People are trying to leave. They skip all the way to Malaysia because they just can't cross the border. Isn't that because the demilitarized zone is like 30 miles long? They have to scoop to. They go to Malaysia and then they go to Korea, to South Korea, and the North Koreans look for them and kidnap them. It's a blight on our culture. I think that a show of pressure is forcing North Korea to be belligerent, and they're making fools of themselves. Every missile just dies out. So they lose prestige, and already there's a market economy that has to grow. This happens with all commie countries. The resources are too spread thin. You have one dictator who's so absolutely ruthless. Kim Il-sung was absolutely evil. He was just kill everybody who gets in the way of the commie agenda. Kim Jong-il backs off a little. Kim Jong-un is just a silly kid, essentially. Still ruthless, apparently. I don't know if the reports are true that he fed his uncle to wild dogs. It's possible. But they start doing stupider things, and people start to get more power. They start to rise up. This happened in the Soviet Union. It's happened in every major commie country. In China, the rebellions are getting louder. Hong Kong, they tried to incorporate it. Big mistake, because they're not going to give up their freedom. There's something in human beings that won't tolerate it. So I like it. I supported the bombing of the fields in Syria. No lives were lost. We didn't kill anybody. I say we. The government didn't kill anybody.
6 people.
Nobody was. No. The airfield, nobody died.
When they attacked
they bombed the field.
The 59 missiles. I think there was 6 murders. I think it was 6 killed.
I'm gonna have to look at that again because that's not what I heard. We actually had I was there at downtown supporting the president. I was a little iffy because I don't want troops in Syria. We don't want Vietnam. I don't want that. Everybody's a bad guy. Everybody, even the ethnic Christians, they work with Hezbollah. Their understanding of Christ is not spiritual. It's just ethnic. So I'm not on board with that. Heck no. Some of them don't like Israel. No, sorry, I'm not on board with that shit.
So look into the temporary protected status and then the history of MS-13, how it was started here in the United States.
But it still has to be stopped, and El Salvador's part of it.
Well, yeah, but it was started here.
So let's turn this around. Why are people immigrating here in large numbers? Tell me that again.
Okay.
What's happening? Refugees because of gangs, crime, evil governments that are so essentially corrupt. Am I hitting it right?
Guatemala was under the PTS list, I think, in the 80s, early 90s because of the Civil War. Also El Salvador, there was a war between Honduras and El Salvador. A lot of refugees came here because of that.
And what was sparking these civil wars? I have an answer.
Honestly, I think it's funny. There was a lot of political issues.
Absolutely.
But I think the needle that broke the camel's back was a soccer game. It was a war. I forgot what year was it, in the 80s or 70s.
I'm going to add a bigger element. The Soviet Union, seeking to create satellites here. Why Pinochet was installed? Because Allende was a commie, and he had a ruthless record. Commies have killed 10 times more than the Nazis ever did. I don't excuse the Nazis, okay? But communism is far worse. It's evil. I mean, it's totally ruthless. Nothing stops them. There's no national interest to preserve. They just don't care. This is why you see a foreign policy that seems to support some dictators versus others. It's the best we can do. They call it realpolitik. And that's why you saw the U.S. and the CIA doing what they did. Because a commie Chile would have been very bad. Pinochet, think about it. This is what... There's a long-term view. People say, well, USA is intermittent in all these countries and they're so bad. This is why. You have a nationalist, like a national dictator, like Pinochet.
Yeah.
In '86, the people booted him out with a plebiscite. And then he was put under house arrest for war crimes, and he died claiming to be an enfeebled Alzheimer's patient. Communists have to be killed. They are. It's an insane ideology. And this is why you see these things happen. Is it pretty? No. Is it nice? No. Maybe there's better ways to handle it. We work with the Mujahideen to get them out of the sphere there. But that's what sparked it. You had commies coming in, Sandinistas. These are bad people. Bad.
I mean, I don't.
They kill everybody.
I don't feel that the answer is to ever kill anybody, but education is what's best. And you know what? That's how these communists they were taught that when they were young, and that's how they get you since you were a kid. You know.
That's true. No, I agree with you. That's
education
true.
Education is the big thing. That's why
indoctrination.
I'm very. I want to push this agenda in Cudahy of getting better parenting classes. There's a lot of misguided teenagers.
Oh wow, that's like brilliant.
Yeah.
That's seriously brilliant. That's what teachers do in these troubled schools. They will have the parents. Charters will require that. You as parents must come. You as parents must teach. So there's an issue I hope we have common ground on. Do you support school choice?
The what?
Do you support school choice?
School choice, yeah.
Okay, because unions are running all over that area.
Mm-hmm.
They took over Huntington Park. You saw.
Yeah,
Valentine was the only one, and they still lost because of voter fraud. That's another problem. Oh my God.
Just even simple parenting skills as far as hitting your children. I don't. That teaches your children to resolve their issues with violence. Growing up, that's what they think. They feel like, hey, well, when I didn't listen, my mom would smack me across my face. So when I grow up and my wife doesn't do what I want to do, what I want her to do, and I'm gonna just smack her across the face.
It doesn't work. Maybe it's a wall. You have 2 children, is that right?
Yes, I have 2 boys.
Okay.
And that's what I do. I educate them. If they do something wrong, I let them know what they did wrong. Other parents just smack them or hit them, and that's not. They're not educating them on what it is. And mental health is a big issue as well. It's a big issue, and that should be addressed. Drug education.
And I submit to you, a lot of the mental illness, like I talked about with homosexuals and transgenders, it comes back to no parenting. It's something that I take for granted. We are sadly now seeing the consequences of the breakdown of family. Unfortunately, this is what it took. All the advocates just kept going from tradition, but people have had to see the consequences. Why you see higher gang involvement, etc. And this is the other thing too. The ancient Greek historians, city-states imploded because of the breakdown of family. And I'm serious. And we have a chance to actually stop it because they didn't have a Christian culture at all.
Look at all these serial killers, man. The Facebook Live murderer.
Oh my God! I couldn't.
They'll have parent issues. So
unbelievable.
It all goes down to that.
Okay. Now, Jesus, okay. I'm going to be a little political here, and I didn't come with voter rolls or anything, but I will tell you this: this state is going to hell in a handbasket, and it is because of the Democratic Party. I'm sorry, it's a fact. Republicans don't get machines because they tend to boot themselves out because the principles are inconsistent. We don't have political sheep. David Hadley tried to start one and it failed. Rendon, De Leon, these are people who are hurting Hispanic. All citizens are being hurt. Rendon just jacked up your gas prices, for Christ's sake.
You don't feel like the U.S. economy...
That's money you could be using for your kids. Jack Guerrero talked about that at the last meeting. This is... it's horrific. Varas is writing on Public. Now, this guy wants to be a Democratic mover and shaker. You can see. It's very hard for me, because it sounds so cynical, but I'm telling you, this Democratic Party, it has gone communist. It is killing our state.
It's not the same as before, but
do
you feel the economy does better under the DNC or under a Republican?
It does best when Republican legislators in Congress are enacting clear policies which a president signs off on. Because you have in the back of your mind, you're probably thinking of Clinton when the economy did very well and there was a balanced budget. Republicans made that happen. Bush, Mr. Globalist, big spender, no good. They have to be consistent with the policies. That's what we need. But hell, you could be an independent for, I don't care at this point, but Rendon, De Leon, they are exploiting the illegals, and the legal residents, as you point out, end up voting for these frauds. That's the card they keep playing. And this is, I've shared with this everybody and they don't want to hear me. That is why we have to just enforce the laws. If you want to see a cleaned up Southeast area, Illegal immigration has to stop. And this game of politicians saying, I'll make sure your mom doesn't get deported, which they can't do. They are lying, and you know it. Chris Garcia took those activists for a ride. And he says, then he says, I don't care because they can't vote. And honestly, they shouldn't vote.
And I've said it before. We're not trying to harbor criminals. Like I said, the majority of like you say,
are good people, as Trump had said. But the law's the law, and this lawlessness is breeding corruption. It is not, and unfortunately, this is a wound that's hit into stage 4 cancer, and so the chemo is going to hurt like hell. I'm sorry, but it will. And maybe Donald Trump's probably not going to do what I want. He's probably, I don't know. But see, that's the whole problem. The arbitrary interest of a president deciding whether to enforce or not enforce laws, you don't want that. There's a lot of, I've read stories in the LA Times of illegals going back to their home countries. They can make it. In Mexico, right now, the citizenry has asserted a new power that no one would have ever seen, and the media won't talk about it because the media does have a globalist tinge. They are rising it up. Peña Nieto is so corrupt, and they hate him. The Attorney General is getting indicted for drug running. El Chapo finally got caught. See, this is the other thing too, and I totally agree with it. And Trump has changed his rhetoric. You're agreed. He's not artful. You don't say things like that. But he wasn't lying. It was a harsh thing to say.
If he wouldn't have said it, he wouldn't have won his. I felt like Jeb Bush would have the lead before he made that comment. Honestly, I thought that he was gonna win. If Trump wouldn't have said those,
all
comments,
Republicans hated him. He was an establishment shill. Yeah. People were tired of Bush. He was pro Common Core and pro amnesty. He was
Trump
in the
came
water.
out of left field. Nobody's seen him coming. Those
Not
comments
true.
will start. I mean, come on. The people who hate Trump made him more famous than anything else. They made songs about him.
That's right.
I mean,
that is true.
I mean, he was all over the news, and the media loves to inject fear, and they're biased as well. Fox News is biased.
I agree. They don't like Trump either.
If 20 kind of do. 20 if 20 Caucasians commit the biggest crimes and one illegal immigrant commits a crime, they'll put the illegal immigrant on the headlines and say that he killed somebody or whatever. I mean, it is what it is, but it's a small percentage.
And I would flip that around and say I get a lot of sob stories about the Dreamers. And I don't get any stories about. I don't get any stories about young Americans who have to work 2 jobs and barely make it. The record 40% who are still living at home.
Yeah. They're both biased. I mean, unless you're talking about the AP,
they're biased too.
There's name me one news channel that's not biased.
Exactly. And the fact that everybody's woken up to that has made our culture better. I know Breitbart's going to lean this way. I know New York Times is going to lean that way. I'll read both, and I can still get information. Historians do the same thing all the time.
That's why I'm here. Anybody else will be closed-minded and just scream at you when you come to the council meeting. Not here.
And you haven't, and I recognize that, and I will say I look forward to this. I had a sense that you had a willingness to go to the next step. Mm-hmm. People like Alan Garcia are very troubled. He's threatening. I don't know what agitates these individuals. I really don't. Or the people like Nowie. This is brainwashed. Nowie's been brainwashed. He's destructive. I see posters that say "No pilgrims, deport." I wanted to. It's laughable now. I want to take pictures with them. It's funny. They don't know what they're talking about.
We definitely can't go back in time.
And my answer is we don't have to. And the other problem, this issue of guilt and shame. I'm not responsible for what some settlers had done. I'm just not. And honestly,
even though that they instigated these wars to take over Mexico, and I feel like it was instigated wars.
What happened along the Rio Grande in '46 was a very disputed account. I read this. This was a monograph I had read 7 years ago. I'll find the book again. Polk at the time was ready to incorporate everything, all of Mexico, and
they held back from. I think they went all the way to where the DF is at, where Mexican capital.
Absolutely, and the reports were the DF citizens wanted to become Americans.
Yeah.
They wanted to be assimilated. They wanted it because they were fed up with the dysfunction. There were communistic elements going on then. And I hate to say it, but from what I understand, in Mexico, you can't own property. You get a 99-year lease. That's not going to promote growth. Americans move down there, they retire there, but they don't own the property.
I'm not. Well, by the way, I'm not Mexican. I don't know if you knew that. I'm not Mexican.
Salvadorian, I believe?
No, my parents are Guatemalan.
Oh, Guatemala. Okay. Good.
So I don't know the Mexican laws, how it's over there.
Yeah, I'm just telling you, this is what I've seen. I don't know what it's like. But, you bringing that up is good. People are not able to have a stable home. That's what I've heard. And so if you don't have a mailing address, it's very hard to conduct business.
Right.
That's a fundamental problem.
Yeah.
And I don't know about it. That has to change. Chile's a great model to follow. Argentina, not so much. Chile's a great country, from what I understand. And even though it was a coup to get rid of the commie president,
Look into that.
and then they have school choice all over the state. They have pension accounts that are private, so I own it. I don't have to worry about the government robbing me. It's pretty damn cool. They still have their different corruption issues, and it's like the worst problem they have is that they think their Spanish is the worst ever. Nobody understands them when they talk. That seems to be the worst problem. But that's a model that needs to be followed. These free market reforms. You can own property. You can engage in trade. You don't have to go through 43 bureaucrats to open up a business. That's why a lot of these countries are so corrupt. A bureaucrat says, hand it over, or I'm not going to give you a permit. You can't pull that crap here. That's what's happening in Mexico. That's changing. It's changing. And when we secure our borders and stop taking in all the refugees, they will turn around and fight. And they're already doing it in Mexico. And there is a correlation, I believe, when Trump says we're not having it.
I think that's up to the politicians, though. I don't think it's up to the citizens. If they're running away from something that they feel they can't fix in their lifetime, it's a hard decision.
We had a revolution that went from 76 to 83, and we were in the country. It can be done. But I will have to say...
There's a lot of corruption, though, and I've heard in Mexico, from the police officers to everything. It's just really bad.
And the answer,
really bad.
Yeah, it's changing. The cartels have gotten so bad that they are now expanding firearms carry. Individuals are, because I know that was restricted heavily. That's changing because the people are just not going to tolerate being shot at anymore. Or journalists being killed. Pretty horrific. Journalists being hung from bridges.
I think as far as gun laws, I think that's something we would agree on. I'm not anti.
You're pro Second Amendment.
Yeah.
Good.
That's
a huge leap. I hope you make a bigger.
You can't blame the fork for making someone fat.
That's right. So. That's awesome. I'm so glad to hear that. Bernie Sanders had a tough time on that gun issue because he was pro-gun essentially, which is good. Unfortunately, he had to try to abandon it to win a primary. This is not good.
I love that story of this officer. He was getting gunned down, and a citizen killed the perpetrator. I don't know if you heard about that.
I've heard that, and that's a story that...
Situations like that, we need that.
And the media suppresses pro-Second Amendment stories. The local press has been pretty good. In Redondo Beach, for example, someone was stealing his gun. Bam. Stopped him.
So,
okay.
That's really good. But that's pretty much it.
So, what's your short-term and long-term to fix this? Okay, there are people you need to get in touch with. I encourage you to get in touch with. I'm not sure. I got to ask their permission because I'm taking a risk doing this already. What steps do you want to take between now and 2019? Because I'm assuming that's your goal. Do you want to run for office?
That's what I want to get to. It goes either way.
And so you recognize that those clowns have got to go.
Honestly, I don't know Chris Garcia.
They're cheating their residents, dude. You can talk to Varas about it. You can talk to any press agent about this. The suppression of public comment is on freedom of speech, under attack in that city. Full disclosure.
But I also feel Jack Earl didn't show any proof of why he thinks Chris Garcia is corrupt.
Evergreen clauses for these contracts? Excuse me? What the hell is this? They're donating. Roy Ball donated money. The city attorney donates money. Roy Ball's corrupt. The mom's corrupt. She hasn't done anything for those communities. You've lived there all your life.
As far as Chris Garcia, I don't see it. I don't see any. Until I see the proof, then we can talk about that because there's a lot of assumptions done about him.
Look over the 406s and see who donates to it. For starters, how about closing City Hall for a day, hiking up the parking fees? What is this? The city's going bankrupt, dude.
I live there. I don't see.
You live there.
Enforcement. I don't see parking enforcement. My son goes to school there, and I see people parking in red all the time. And there could be money done. I mean, there could be people being ticketed, and they're not. They're not. Trust me. I live there. I don't see.
Okay.
No
What happened to the ballet? Those little girls being denied the right to perform. That was awful. And I had lots of people talk. That was, you've seen the January 11th videos. I think we had a lot of fun that night. I'll tell you. We scared the sand out of them, and the abuse that we saw going on.
I mean, there was people out there doing the Nazi salute. I don't know if they were with you.
Apparently, someone tells me. Now, here's the thing: Chris Garcia plays the white supremacist card, but that event was after the meeting. Think about that.
Of that person.
I recall one person pulling that crap, We didn't
Were they
invite
with
him.
you?
I don't even know who he is. You know, we had our Berkeley free speech right. Neo-Nazis show up. We don't identify with them. Someone tried to punk us in Ventura. We chased him off, and then we found out it was a ruse. It was a social experiment. We passed it.
The
we
same
told
way
him,
we have people on our side who act erratically, the same way there's Republicans who really do say, fuck Mexicans, fuck all this shit. So they really do play racist cards.
elected officials?
No, not elected. I mean, not that I've seen, but I've seen Trump supporters and all that. But I'm not gonna generalize and say that you're all
That's
the
true.
same.
Yeah, there are supremacists. There were some Klansmen. David Duke, but he lost. He was fully repudiated. Keep in mind, the Anaheim Dragon endorsed Hillary Clinton after being beat down in a rally. He said, "I'm voting for Hillary." So the race card is completely played out. It's totally inappropriate. It's so played out. Maybe we'll finally
It's
be
from
able
both
to
sides, and that needs to stop.
end this shit.
It's always existed. I mean, same thing with war. It's always going to exist. Humans and chimpanzees and ants are the only species that actually go to war amongst each other. So it's always going to exist, no matter how much we try.
It is. So I agree. So
My goal, as far as, like I said, I would like to run either for council, but it also depends. It could go further than that. I could run for, mayor of the whole county, but it just depends on fundraising and fame as well right now. Because now, to be a politician, that's why Trump is president. I mean, if he wasn't famous, he wouldn't be where he's at right now. Or if he wasn't
it's the media that he sucked up
Yes,
very well.
yes,
He ran them so well. Republicans would run from the media or try to play nice, which never works because they're always going to denigrate Republicans. But he forced them to cover him. He forced them to follow his narrative. He forced them to do it.
It's become a popularity contest, honestly, when it comes to elections now. It has. As far as presidency, it's going to be hard for a no-name to win the next election, and you know that. When will that happen?
Would you say that Bernie Sanders had a 50-state recognition?
That's an exception.
He didn't.
Yeah.
What inspired people was a set of key ideas that resonated with a key demographic. But more importantly, he was viewed as not corrupt. Hillary was fully in Wall Street's pocket, fully corrupt. It's also about your veneer.
Bernie, you're talking about someone who's been in politics for 30 years, and it's hard to find that man contradicting himself. When I would love to see a video of Bernie Sanders contradicting himself. I could find 50 statements from Trump and Hillary contradicting
they're all over the
themselves.
map. Absolutely.
So Bernie, that's what he had. I mean,
He had message discipline. I've seen it.
Yeah,
He
so-
did. The problem is it's a message that is wrong.
yeah,
I will tell you.
Not a lot of people would agree with.
Let me ask this question. Why are you a Bernie supporter? Because I imagine you still are one.
I wouldn't know. Honestly, I can't answer that right now.
Okay, I'll back up to the year or year and a half prior.
Mostly making college affordable. That's one thing, because I think it's a big scam. It's one of the biggest scams in U.S. history. How these university CEOs keep getting richer and these students are buried in debt.
You know what? I absolutely agree with you.
That's what
I do.
That's what he engaged me.
You know why that's happening, though? What's your take on it? Why is this happening?
There's a lot of reasons. There's so many reasons.
Name one that you feel.
Just like any other business, any CEO, they're gonna make the most amount of money, and their workers are gonna stay at a certain level, and that's all.
Okay, I want to speak to those if you don't mind. I may not change your mind, but I want to show you why this is happening. And this is one of the many reasons I do not support his view on it. The government loan program is pushing money into it.
Right.
And so the more money that the government hands out, which is tax dollars essentially, so that's more people with money going after the same number of seats. What ends up happening? It ends up costing more. So it's a cycle. So that's why it gets more and more unaffordable. These loans are doing the damage. You can go like 20 years ago, college was a lot cheaper.
Exactly. 10 years ago. It was cheaper.
Oh my God, I can't even imagine now. I mean, I graduated from UC Irvine in 2003. I paid off all my loans last year. So 15 years later, 14 years later. Ted Cruz didn't pay off his loans until he was 45. Marco Rubio made that an issue. The problem is you can't, government subsidy is bringing up prices, and the colleges use all this money for non-academic needs. As you pointed out, this is a government intrusion. on the other hand, if we're removing the easy money, and not only that, but the dreamer thing. So you have a lot of illegals who are jumping in.
Right.
Even if it's $3,000 or $3,500, it's a further burden on the system, and they're getting in-state tuition on top of that. And there was a scandal here. The UCs were taking out-of-state kids more than the in-state ones. That's wrong because they were paying more. So that's why the prices are too high. Honestly, we're at a point. People are able to learn so much through YouTube now. We might start seeing a generation that will stop going to college. It's not necessary.
I support entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
I support self-education. You don't have to go bury yourself in the library anymore. You can
I know, the library's in your phone.
You can educate. Yeah, you can use it toward your own advantage. We are going to see that type of generation coming up.
It's already here.
So,
thank God. And those colleges teach the whole Marxist economic agenda. I haven't met one professor that has a free market model or free market view. I would encourage you. I'll write the names down because I'm so dedicated to you following this up. Hayek is the name of one. The book is called The Fatal Conceit. I understand. Do you have like a relatively hostile view of capitalism or free markets?
I have my opinions about it. I just don't want to get too deep into that.
In Milton Friedman, Capitalism and Freedom. So, have you read like Marx's manifesto and stuff like that? In contrast, okay, a lot of people are being fed a lot of kids are being bombarded with the socialist idea, more government, more equality, but it actually creates more inequality. It is less equitable. This is everything from single payer to gun registries to the college issue. It is actually like a stage 3 form of socialism. That one guy in Missouri said it. Before he mentioned legitimate rape, he would have actually had a good chance. Rhetoric matters. But that's why college has become so unaffordable. It's government money pushed into extremes. This idea that everybody must go to college, and you're sensitive to that's not true. In fact, it's now destructive. There are people who would thrive and they wouldn't do it in an academic setting. That's an issue. Let's go to what's behind it. Your idea why college should be more affordable, the idea is education, right? So, and you're already seeing it. There's other ways to educate people.
I'm not saying it should be free. It's just too expensive.
Bernie thinks it should be free.
I don't agree with that because
it can't be. It actually leads to. Thank you. That's the question. It has to come to that. Who will pay? Someone must. Professors won't do it for free. Administrators don't do it for free. And you're also saying, of course, the administration is just.
But look, as well, he wants to tax the 1%, the billionaires, but they own businesses. If you tax them way too much, then that means they're gonna have to reduce their businesses, which reduces more money.
Exactly. This is so refreshing to hear.
So
you have no idea. Did you make these connections like recently, or?
I've known this.
I'm talking about time.
No, I've had these opinions for a long time.
So then I have to